welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
It's happened, Jerry. Today, Matt
Sunny.
Rhule was relieved of his duties as the Carolina Panthers head coach. Steve Wilkes will take over on an interim basis for the rest of the season. We knew this day was coming. It was just a matter of when, really.
Yeah.
And it was today.
The worst Carolina Panthers head coach of all time has now been fired.
I was going to ask you if you think that's
yes.
if
George
you're
Seifert
100%.
had a 9-win team and an 8-win team, and then went 1-15.
Mm-hmm.
So his win percentage is higher than Matt Rhule. I would just overall say, yeah, Matt Rhule is the worst. I mean, he was brought here to rebuild this team.
Mm-hmm.
The defense has improved. The offense has continued to get worse every year, and he's kept changing coaches and everything else. It's time. It's not working. We have to rebuild from our rebuild. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think Matt Rhule will be remembered as the worst coach in the Panthers' history. There's really nothing to look back on. I was thinking about this earlier. Like, is there anything that we can look back on that was positive through his reign? The only thing I can think of is that Cam game where Cam came back. Like, that was the highest high that was in the Matt Rhule era. I think the team might be worse today than it was when he took over in 2020 overall. I think we're in a worse position, honestly.
I can't really argue that point because, I mean, our offense was pretty bad. We had Kyle Allen and Tyler Heineke starting, but
I don't think we've upgraded at quarterback. The offensive line is better. I think the offensive line is moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
The defense was good under Rivera as well. Maybe those last couple of years it wasn't great, but
yeah, that was when he tried to switch from 4-3 to 3-4, and he had just a bunch of misshaping puzzle pieces to the defense, which
he was grasping at straws. He's trying to figure something out.
Yeah, and it just didn't work. But I think the next head coach here, because I don't think Steve Wilkes is going to get an honest look, and honestly, I don't know if he deserves it either at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, Wilkes got his only other head coaching job was in Arizona, a few years ago. He came in basically with Josh Rosen as his quarterback. Didn't work out. Now he's here with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. Can't imagine it's going to work out. So I don't know that Steve Wilkes has ever really gotten a fair shot at a head coaching position. I don't think it's going to happen this year with Carolina. I do hope that whoever the next coach is retains Steve Wilkes because I do think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
Just maybe not a good head coach. I don't know. We'll see. I would say that any fan expecting Steve Wilkes to come in here and turn this thing around this year, you might want to get your expectations reset a little bit.
Correct. That's one thing. The other coaches, Phil Snow is still calling defense from all intensive purposes.
As of right now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen anything. And Ben McAdoo is still on offense. Now, I do think Steve Wilkes can maybe emphasize a little bit more direction of, hey, we need to work on third down efficiency. We need to really establish the run. We can, he has that power as now the interim head coach to really try to implement a few things. So, but I don't see this being a complete turnaround after the 5 games.
Still the same players on the team.
Yeah.
Right. Still the same schemes, really. Steve Wilkes is not going to be able to change that much in a short amount of time. However, I do wonder if he will take over defensive play calling duties. He has that ability as the head coach. There were some rumors recently that he and Phil Snow were not really on the same page in terms of the schemes and everything. So I'm just curious to see what changes over the next few weeks.
And honestly, that was something that when Steve Wilkes' name kept coming up as the interim, I was kind of curious because if you remember when he was DC here for that
Hmm.
1 year before getting the head coaching job, he loved to blitz.
Yeah.
He was, and especially with J.C. Horn locking down one side of the field,
Yeah.
I feel like you could do that a little bit more with these
Assuming JC Horn's
corners,
healthy. We don't know what's going on with him.
assuming
Yeah.
true. But I, it's a glimmer of hope. I mean, I hate saying that. And yeah, someone got fired, but he has millions upon millions of dollars from this franchise. I am not
Yeah.
gonna cry over
No,
him.
look, I mean, in all honesty, I think Matt Rhule is a very nice guy. I think Matt Rhule, he has a beautiful family. I do wish him well in the college ranks where I think he is a good coach.
Yeah,
His system fits the college game a lot better, obviously, than it did in the NFL. I would not expect to ever see him in the NFL again, but I think he will be successful wherever he goes next, Nebraska or wherever he ends up. I think he's gonna be fine. And from a money perspective, the Panthers still owe him $40 million. They will pay him out the rest of this season, but if he gets a college job, that money's going to offset. So in his contract, if let's say he goes to Nebraska, he gets $10 million a year. The Panthers won't owe him anything.
is
Only
that
only if he, yeah,
is
go ahead.
that an NFL
No, that's in his contract. It's in his
for
contract,
college too?
college or NFL, wherever
Okay,
wherever he gets another coaching job. So
because I know that that's happened in the past, but in
yeah,
the language of the contract, that it was the only in the NFL. So when they went
yeah,
to the college ranks, they got both paychecks and they
right,
proved.
right.
And I
In this
wouldn't be
case,
shocked.
from everywhere that I've read and all the reporters that I've seen reporting on this, that's what they're saying. And Ian Rappaport just reported that. So
Okay, then
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah,
And honestly, this may have been a nice thing to do for Matt Rhule. As much, look, we're 1-4. We're not going anywhere. The team continues to have the same issues for
mm-hmm.
3 seasons. He was going to get fired if he didn't make the playoffs, and the weakest part of our schedule, you went 1-3. So
Yeah,
it didn't look good. But now he gets a jump start of the head coaching for college. The
yeah.
premier, the Nebraskas, those teams will come looking for him. He's again good record in college. It's just and good at building
Right,
in college.
right. I think he
So
will get his pick of whatever big time college job he wants. I think he'll get his pick. So, and I think he'll be happier there. I think the NFL workload was not what he expected
no,
from things he said and from how towards the end of the season just how he looks, and again he's not had success in the NFL, so that I'm sure is a big part of it. But I think the college coaching in college is a lot different than coaching in the NFL. Ask Urban Meyer, ask Chip Kelly, ask Nick Saban. Like
yeah, I was gonna
really
say.
good college coaches
I
don't
mean,
make it.
Nick
They just don't
Saban's
make it.
considered the best college
Yeah,
coach of all time, and he couldn't hack it in the NFL.
yeah,
I mean,
yep.
you just rattled off like Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer. I mean, Pete Carroll's one of the few that actually transcended. Jimmy
But even
Johnson,
he had to take a second chance at it, right?
yeah,
His first chance, he was good, but he wasn't. He did get fired. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a good day, I think, for the Panthers overall. This is a W. Um, you know, first coach fired. I'm sure there are a lot of people that made some money today betting on that.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
it does give David Tepper an opportunity to go ahead and start the head coaching search now, and I'm sure he will. I would fully expect Steve Wilkes to be part of that, process. He's going to get the best shot at it because he's going to have, a 10-week, 12-week
audition.
trial. Yeah. So we're going to see, David Tepper will get a really good look at him and see if, and not, it's not necessarily going to be wins and losses, I think, but just how the players respond, so we'll see. There's big names out there: Sean Payton, Dan Quinn. There's also
Ugh.
big coordinator jobs out there with the Bills' offensive coordinator. The enemy's always out there. Brian Flores is out there. So there's some head coaches that have had success and are highly respected. I would think that David Tepper is probably going to move in that direction with a former head coach, in the NFL, and we'll
I
kind of see where it goes.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think former head coach has to be it on his checklist. I think NFL experience will be, whether it's
Hmm.
been offensive coordinator for multiple years. Ken Dorsey for the Bills, I know you mentioned him. He's only been an offensive coordinator. This is his first year. I don't see it
Hmm.
because Dayball just went to the Giants. And look what a good coach can do. I mean, the
Yeah.
Giants are point example of a team that doesn't have the greatest talent,
Yeah.
but they're winning and they're
Now, are you?
competing in every game.
Is this your opinion, or is this what you think Tepper is thinking? Because I'm trying to say what I think Tepper is thinking. I think Tepper, he went coach with hardly any NFL experience, no head coaching NFL experience. Now I think he goes the opposite direction. I think he goes with somebody that's had a lot of NFL coaching and head coaching experience as well. That's just where I think he flips and he goes the complete opposite direction.
I don't think he course corrects that much. I think he does course correct in the sense of not looking at the college ranks.
Well,
But I don't.
think he'd be foolish if he did.
Well, but I don't see him going. David Tepper seems he's very he's very smart. Let's just go ahead and say that. But I
He's
also think
smart with money. Yeah.
he looks at trends and he looks at what's going on around the NFL. And most of the retread head coaches don't typically pan out. Now
Hmm.
there are a few, but a lot of them don't. And I could see him looking more for a young coordinator who's been in it for a little bit and going that route.
I could see that too, and I'd honestly be fine with that. I don't want Dan Quinn.
No,
I don't
God
want
no.
Dan Quinn.
Sean
I
Payton,
think
you're gonna
you've
have
talked me into
to.
Sean Payton, but yeah, there's some compensation there. We have to figure that out. But yeah, I was just kind of looking at this list. So the teams with the 8 worst records since 2020, now every single one have made coaching changes. Every single one. And the Jaguars have done it twice. The Texans have done it twice. But yeah, I mean, the Panthers have one, two, three, four, the 5th worst record in the NFL since Matt Rhule was hired.
Yeah.
And that's why he's fired.
It,
And 2 of the teams ahead of them have fired 2 coaches in that time.
it's look. David Tepper gave him longer than I thought he deserved. I think
I agree.
I am not on board with firing a head coach in his first year unless it's an
Mm-hmm.
Urban Meyer type of situation. I think
Sure.
Steve Wilkes should have gotten a second year in Arizona. But after 2 years, if the same issues are occurring and you're not trending up, and that's what happened last year, I think it's time to go. He got to 2.25 years, and he
Yeah.
nothing. It's not
Yeah.
looking up.
Yeah. I mean, this is so well, let's kind of talk about what's next. This happened before the trade deadline. You and I kind of talked a little bit yesterday in our
Mm-hmm.
recap about what might we do at the trade deadline if Matt Rhule is fired. We're going to see now. Is this a blow up? Because if it is, then you have a really good opportunity to get some compensation, some draft picks back for some of these guys. I would fully expect Robbie Anderson to be traded. I think he's Matt Rhule's guy. Matt Rhule is no longer here. I don't think Robbie Anderson even wants to be here at this point.
No, he
So I
doesn't
would,
play like
yeah,
it.
yeah, I would expect Robbie Anderson 100% to be traded. I think you could see Christian McCaffrey get traded.
I
Uh, I
I
think
don't
you could
see
see
that.
Brian Burns get traded. I think
I,
you could see these things happen, honestly.
I'm just saying I think that's dumb. I will put it out there. Do not look to trade DJ Moore. Do not trade Brian Burns, CMC. They are
I don't
your
think DJ Moore
cornerstone.
gets traded. He just signed a new contract. I
I
don't
think
think he
those are
gets traded.
cornerstones, and you want to entice a good head coach.
Yeah.
Getting rid of your best players is not going to entice a premier head coach to come here. Now,
It depends. It depends on if Tepper wants to blow it up. If he wants to do a complete teardown rebuild, because they sort of did a half measure with Matt Rhule. It was not a complete blow up. It was not a complete rebuild. They took pieces that they had. They got rid of some veterans,
I could
but they
see
took a lot of the pieces that they already had and they kept them. I could see Tepper again saying, "Hey, if this didn't work, let's go the other way." I could see it happening.
I
I'm not
if
saying
he
it should
does,
happen.
if he does that, I think it's dumb. I think all these people who are calling for all the our stars to get traded for draft capital, you're going to get pennies on the dollar. Second of all, again, you want to entice coaches to come here, and if you're
Why
going to
would
get,
why would you get pennies on the dollar
I don't think
for someone like Brian Burns, for example?
Brian Burns, you're probably not getting okay. Brian Burns, you might get a little bit, but he's only on that 1 year deal.
Yeah, but that's typically when guys like that are traded. You know, they're traded to someone who then signs them for the long deal. I mean,
but
I don't know that this is a position where you're getting pennies on the dollar. All these guys, maybe on McCaffrey, you're getting pennies on the dollar because of the situation, the amount of money he makes. But guys like Burns, even DJ Moore, who I just said that they're not going to trade him. He's on a really team friendly deal. I think he probably would have a lot of trade interest. It just would
oh, he
depend on what the
definitely would
cap
be.
hit for us would be if it made any sense to do. And I don't
I
think it does.
I don't think it makes sense. Again, I mean, unless you're really wanting to strip it down to the bare bones, but I
Right.
mean, it feels
I mean,
like
is
they
that what you
tried
do
to
though?
do that. They started to do with Matt Rhule, but then course corrected to
Right.
signing quarterbacks.
Right.
And we said when they start doing that, this makes no sense. This is
Right.
supposed to be a 3 year rebuild. Just suck it up, Buttercup, and suck for a year to get some draft picks and get
Yeah.
out some bad contracts. And they didn't want to do it.
Is Matt Rhule still the head coach if they don't sign Teddy Bridgewater and they go into that season with
Kyle
Kyle
Allen
Allen and they end up with a top 2 or 3 draft pick
and draft Trevor
and
Lawrence or
draft Trevor Lawrence or whoever else? I
Zach
mean,
Wilson. I mean,
yeah, maybe not Zach Wilson, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, probably not, right? Unless they get the number 1 pick, he's probably if you get Trevor Lawrence, then maybe. But even still, Urban Meyer didn't last with Trevor Lawrence.
yeah. Well,
That
Urban
was a
Meyer.
different situation. A different situation.
Look at
Um,
what the current head coach is Jags. Yeah, they lost yesterday, but I mean
yeah,
that team looks night and day better. I mean,
yeah.
competent.
It'll be interesting to see what happens because at this point, now Fitterer is completely running the show.
Yeah,
So, what does Fitterer want? Does Fitterer want to reshape the team in his image and in what he wants? Will they stand pat and wait until the new head coach is brought in and then let the head coach make those decisions or, work with Fitterer to make those decisions?
or will Fitter
They're
could
over.
get fired too. You never know.
Yeah, I don't think he should. He may. I think you and I both are of the opinion that he should not get fired, at least not right now. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I feel that he should stick around. I think a lot of the decision making went through Rule. So a lot of the
Yeah.
draft trades and picks went through Rule. So I think you give Fitter at least 1 year to kind of pick his own guy, see
Mm-hmm.
what draft he does. And I don't think the draft has been that bad.
No, I
Uh,
think the draft picks have been pretty good. And I think most of the free agent signings have been good. The in season trades have been a mixed bag for
yeah.
sure. But I like that he's aggressive and he takes shots. I like Fitter. I think Fitter is going to be a really good GM, and I hope that Tepper has as much patience with him as he did with Rule.
Yeah, I do too. And I think you're right. He is going to probably get some time,
Yeah.
but I don't know. There's always that scared of we're going to completely strip it down again. But I agree, Fitterer didn't have a bringing in a GM after the head coach was so weird,
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen often because then
Well,
your
yeah, the
GM
whole
is responding to the head coach, and that's what
yeah.
it. This was always Matt Rule's kind of baby.
Well, that's the decision Tepper made. Tepper decided to go ahead and bring in Rule and give him all the power.
Hmm.
And you chose the wrong guy, unfortunately, to do that with. Sometimes it works, but very rarely does that like the head coach have the powers of the GM as well, and sort of the puppet master. It just doesn't work in the NFL. It's too much work. You want to let the head coach focus on being the head coach. You want to let the GM focus on being the GM. That's why they're two separate jobs. Only Bill Belichick is like the only one that seems to be able to make it work.
Yeah,
Even like
didn't Jimmy Johnson do it?
well, I mean, You know who the GM of that team is?
It's currently Jerry Jones, but I thought
Yeah,
Jimmy Johnson had control, and then Jerry Jones didn't like all the
you
love
might
that,
be. Yeah, you're probably right.
and
That
then
was a
that's
long
kind of
time
why
ago
he took over.
though.
And
Yeah, I don't really remember, but in the modern day, I think Bill Belichick's the only one that's been able to kind of make it work, um, having all the complete power, and
I'm
he's
also
the best coach of all time,
I'm
arguably.
I'm also kind of curious if maybe we're going to see some more of the, Amari Barnos, the Brandon Smith, some of the
Mm-hmm.
younger guys that right now are getting 2 snaps,
Yeah,
in defense, who played well in preseason, and especially like Amari Barno. We have really no pass rush outside of Burns.
yeah,
Let's see some, especially again because Steve Wilkes likes to pass rush. So I'll be interested to see how that shakes out in the future.
yeah. I mean, I think you could see Shaq Thompson traded. I think you could
I
see Shaq Thompson traded, and I think you could see Brandon Smith moved right into that role and play the rest of the season there.
I am I've mentioned not wanting to trade away our key players. If Shaq Thompson moves on, I would not hate it. I
Yeah,
personally think he's been missing a lot of tackles. I know a YouTuber, I can't think of your name, mentioned it. And I was like, yeah, we mentioned the missed tackles, but not him specifically.
specifically. Yeah,
And I think he's a good piece, but I think we could probably maybe get a third round pick for him or so.
maybe, maybe his cap hit next year is 25 million. So
No one's going to take that. Never mind.
I mean, they could trade for him and restructure. That happens all the time. So I wouldn't be too concerned with that. But yeah, I don't know that you get a third. I think you maybe get a fourth or a fifth for him. It's kind of like a cap clearing move than anything else. And they need to do some cap clearing moves. They're 30 million over the cap for next year. So that's why I think a complete teardown is a real possibility. As much as I don't want to see our young studs traded, Burns is coming up for a contract extension.
Yeah.
They don't currently have the money to pay him. Um, Chin is moving in that direction. They don't currently have the money to pay what he's going to deserve. So they're going to have to do a lot of restructuring and trading. Honestly, they're going to have to get rid of a lot of guys. So I think it's going to be a very interesting rest of the season. I don't know that it's going to be a fun rest of the season to watch.
Yeah. And those of you who wanted Matt Rhule fired, myself included,
Mm-hmm.
don't expect this team to whip it around and,
Yeah.
start tearing off wins. And then I'm going to hear the Matt Rhule truthers come out. See, it wasn't Matt Rhule's fault. Well, he built this team. He built the
Yeah.
coaching staff. It's still his fault.
We're not going to pay any attention to those people,
I
honestly.
mean, it's
Like
like, come on, man.
that is a dumb take.
I mean,
Um,
he
yeah.
had a .289 winning percentage.
Yeah, not a good coach, guys. His system did not work here. Did
It
not
did,
work in the NFL.
he didn't win a third of his games. He had worse than that. It's just he's just not an NFL coach.
Yeah. And again, wish him well on his future endeavors. Glad it's not going to be here.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
So, but yeah, looking forward to seeing where we go from here. Again, not necessarily on the field. I think we've seen what this team is this year. But just, from a transactional standpoint, from a GM standpoint, I'm very interested to see what happens the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's woo.
Yeah.
It's something we wanted and needed to happen. The sunset has happened on Matt Rhule, and now we at least can wait for the sunrise. We have something to look forward to because honestly, these games were rough. Like
Yeah.
we're
It's been
still gonna
tough.
have we're still gonna have to watch these Panthers travel to the West Coast and play the Rams, but
That's the thing is like Steve Wilkes does not get an easy first few weeks here.
no.
We got the Rams, the Bucks, division games with the Falcons. I mean, uh, it doesn't get any easier over the next month or so for Steve Wilkes. So, but again, what's best for the franchise might be losing out, might be earning that one or two
Dude,
pick where you've got those quarterbacks that look really, really tasty.
And then you let your new head coach cherry pick his top quarterback of
Hmm.
his dreams to build
Yeah.
and build around.
I mean, if
And
you end up with the number one pick and you've got a choice, of those
CJ
two,
Stroud, Bryce
CJ Stroud,
Young,
yeah.
Levi, I think his name is, from Kentucky. I'm not a big fan of his, but
There's another one too that I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, I mean, if you get that number one pick, you're gonna have coaches knocking down your door trying to get in here
yeah.
and get those guys.
And again, this is why I'm saying like CMC, DJ Moore, and stuff like that. You don't want to get rid
Hmm.
of them because then you could put a number one overall pick in a line that has gotten better. It was CMC, DJ Moore, and then you got to see what Chenault and Terrace Marshall have in them.
Hmm.
But you could
Shy
say, hey,
Smith.
look, I mean, an offensive minded coaches could kind of look at this and be like, all right, I get it. It's 3 years down the road, but
Yeah.
3 years down the road, we could be competing for a Super Bowl. I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Yeah. So do you think the Tepper will go offensive or defensive minded?
I would assume offense, but I could be wrong. I think Brian Flores. I know D'Amico Ryan name has come up a couple
Yeah.
times. I could see those two are defensive guys. I could still see them going, but
Hmm.
if not one of the like premier type of defensive guys, or again, Flores had coaching experience and I think did a good job in Miami. I think he would go offensive coordinator if it wasn't one of those top tier guys, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and Flores, we know that Flores, there have been a lot of things that have come out about Flores not being a very player friendly coach. And there obviously were some issues there in Miami. You don't get rid of a coach like that did a pretty good job without
What
there being some issues.
I
So,
mean, they basically wanted to lose out
yeah,
and get Trevor Lawrence,
right.
or and he was like, no, I'm going to play and win, and they won like 7 games that year.
Yeah. Well, they won out from they were like 1-7. They won out. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, So we'll see. We'll see. But any other kind of final thoughts? Obviously, we'll be back recording again in a few days, and we'll kind of talk a little more about what comes out. But any more kind of initial thoughts here?
yeah. What are we going to talk about besides firing Matt Rhule? Because
Now we got
like,
to focus on football.
no, it's overall a good thing. I'm really
Yeah.
happy. It's not going to change this season right away. The coaches are still here that he brought in,
Hmm.
so we'll see how if there's any leniency. Maybe Steve Wilkes maybe loosens the rein on McAdoo or brings in the reins and saying, hey, we need to do this more and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That I am kind of excited to see. I know we talked about that. We're probably not going to see much difference in wins and losses, but I am interested to see what the offense particularly looks like moving forward. If it does change, if all of a sudden we come out and we score 30 points Sunday, I'm gonna have a lot of questions about what exactly was going on here. So
Yeah,
we'll
me
see.
too.
Yeah,
I don't foresee that happening,
I don't
especially
either.
against the Rams. But
I don't either. But hey, weird things happen all the time, so we'll see. But all right, Jerry, I think that's gonna do it.
all right, we want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. If you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. We're like 17 away from 1,000 subscribers.
16. We're 16 away
16.
now.
Yes.
Even better. Get us there, guys. Until Wednesday, I guess.
Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah. You guys stay safe out there. Don't celebrate too
And
hard.
yeah.
And keep pounding.